Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really immersing ourselves in a truly monumental work, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. This isn't just about, skimming a book summary. We're aiming to distill a cornerstone of existential psychology. We've pulled together quite a few sources covering both halves of this text. It's incredibly challenging, but also deeply insightful. You've got the raw, personal memoir, part of Frankl's experiences in Nazi concentration camps, Auschwitz included. And then there's the systematic psychological theory that grew out of it all, logotherapy.
Right. And our mission today, really, is to get beyond just the basic overview. We want to extract those specific nuggets, the really powerful, actionable ideas that show how Frankl managed to turn unbearable suffering into something. Well, into a universal framework for human resilience. The goal is for you to walk away with a quick, solid grasp of why this book still hits so hard today. It's both haunting and incredibly hopeful.
That sets it up perfectly. So we really have to start at the beginning with the core realization that came directly from the camps. The question isn't just what he survived, but how that absolutely harrowing experience actually forged his entire psychological theory. Where did the proof, the initial idea for logotherapy, come from?
Okay, let's unpack this first big realization.
Well, Frankl was a trained psychiatrist, remember. So even inside the camps, he was observing, looking for patterns. He talks about the psychological journey prisoners went through. First, there was this initial shock right upon arrival. But that shock, it pretty quickly shifted into a profound apathy.
And that apathy wasn't just being sad, was it? Sources suggest it was more like a psychological shield.
Exactly, a necessary numbness, you could say. A self-preservation thing that kind of dulled the emotional response to the constant horror, the violence, the death. But what often gets missed, and Frankl really detailed this, was the final stage. The immense psychological struggle of reintegrating after liberation.
Oh, right. Coming back. Yeah. It wasn't just physical recovery. The sheer mental weight of suddenly having choices again, of facing this empty world after losing so much. He described it as, well, terrifyingly profound.
It sounds like removing all that brutal structure left a completely different kind of emptiness.
Precisely. And watching all this who survived, who didn't, who struggled afterwards, Frankl saw this direct, unmistakable link between endurance and, well, purpose. Resilience wasn't just about physical strength, not at all. It was directly tied to those prisoners who somehow held onto or even found anew a deep sense of meaning.
And he noticed that meaning took specific shapes, didn't he? Like the person obsessed with finishing some work, a manuscript perhaps, or maybe just the intense love for a spouse they hope to see again.
Yes, exactly that. Or finding strength in some kind of faith. This focus on an internal why led him straight to the most powerful insight from the memoir part. This idea of ultimate spiritual freedom, even when your physical freedom is completely brutally gone. This is really the bedrock of his whole theory. He put it so powerfully in that famous line, arguing that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances.
Wow. So that capacity to choose your response, no matter how awful things are, that's the ultimate inner defense.
That's it. That's the core.
And that's the point where the memoir stops being just history and becomes philosophy, doesn't it? His theory isn't just floating in abstract space. It's grounded in the absolute worst kind of human suffering imaginable. It makes the whole thing feel incredibly persuasive because it's forged in reality, not just thought experiments.
Okay, so if the camps revealed that ultimate freedom, that choice of attitude, how did Frankl take that realization and sort of bottle it? How did he turn it into a practical psychological theory, especially for people who, thankfully, haven't faced anything like that kind of trauma? Let's move into the second part of the book then, logotherapy.
Right. Logotherapy is essentially Frankl's systematic prescription built on those observations. It's a form of existential psychotherapy. And to really get it, you kind of have to see it alongside the other big names of the 20th century. Freud, for instance, he saw the main drive as the will to pleasure.
Okay.
Then you had Adler focusing on the will to power, but Frankl, he fundamentally disagreed. He believed the core, the innate human drive, is the will to meaning. That's a huge shift, really. Challenging decades of psychoanalysis by saying our deepest need isn't satisfaction or control, but purpose. So where did Frankl say we actually find this meaning? He wasn't just telling people to find purpose vaguely, was he?
No, he was very practical about it. He laid out 3 specific paths, 3 ways we can discover meaning. And note, he said discover it, not invent it. He thought meaning was objective, already out there.
Okay, interesting distinction. So what are those three routes?
First, meaning can come through work or creation.
Yeah.
Achieving something, contributing, making something tangible, a deed done.
Makes sense, like finishing that manuscript in the camp example.
Exactly. The second path is through love or relationships, that deep connection with another person. He particularly emphasized how love lets us see the potential meaning in the other person.
Right.
And the third route, this is the toughest one, is finding meaning through suffering.
Okay, meaning through suffering. That definitely needs careful handling.
It does. Frankl was very clear. Suffering itself isn't meaningful. It's just often unavoidable. But when it's unavoidable, the meaning isn't in the suffering itself, but in the attitude we choose towards it, the courage, the dignity we bring to facing it. That becomes the achievement.
That really connects back to the camp experience and the last freedom, which brings us to what he saw as the big problem in modern society, something he diagnosed way back in the mid-20th century, but feels incredibly relevant now. This is where it gets really interesting for us today, I think.
He coined the term existential vacuum. Frankl identified this widespread, almost pervasive sense of emptiness. It's not always clinical depression, more like a deep feeling of aimlessness, a lack of inherent purpose that can creep in, especially once our basic survival needs are met.
And how did he see this vacuum showing up in everyday life? Outside of a therapist's office, I mean, because that's where you and I might feel it.
Yeah, he linked it directly to some very modern behaviors. Boredom, for one. Not just being bored occasionally, but like a chronic restlessness. He also saw it pushing people towards, well, destructive patterns, maybe substance abuse, trying to fill that inner void, or, interestingly, towards total conformity.
Conformity? How so?
Well, if you don't have a strong sense of your own purpose, what you should be doing, it's easier to just let society tell you what you must do. You follow the crowd, chase consumer trends, whatever, just to feel like you belong or have some direction, even if it's not authentically yours.
Okay, I see that connection.
Yeah.
So the antidote to this emptiness, this vacuum, is what he termed tragic optimism. This seems to really bridge his theory and his personal story.
Absolutely. Tragic optimism isn't about denying the bad stuff, not at all. It's the ability to say yes to life, to affirm meaning, despite what he called the tragic triad of human existence: unavoidable suffering, guilt, and death. It's basically saying hope is still possible, even when facing the absolute worst.
And this ties right back to that quote he made famous, doesn't it? Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. It connects the abstract theory straight back to those prisoners. Knowing their why gave them the mental strength to endure the unbearable how.
Exactly. Now, thinking about the book's impact, its relevance goes way beyond the Holocaust context, right?
Yeah.
The framework applies to anyone trying to find purpose when dealing with personal suffering or grief or just those periods of uncertainty we all face.
Yeah, and one of the things that always comes up is how accessible it is. Frankl was a psychiatrist, steeped in complex philosophy, but the book mostly avoids dense jargon. It reads more like an intimate, albeit profound, conversation, which is probably why it became such a cornerstone, not just in existential psychology, but even in mainstream self-help.
That's true. But we should also touch on the limitations, the criticisms that have come up in scholarly reviews. That's important for a deep dive. Some critics feel that Frankl's powerful, almost relentless optimism, this idea that meaning is always there to be found, might risk oversimplifying really deep trauma.
How do they mean? What's the potential downside there?
Well, the concern is that maybe not all suffering can be neatly redeemed by finding meaning. Some horrors, especially systematic ones like the Holocaust, might just be meaningless in their brutality. And critics worry that insisting the victim must find meaning could inadvertently put a heavy burden on them, like suggesting they somehow failed if they couldn't find dignity amidst utter destruction.
That's a really important nuance. It suggests we need to see Frankl's framework as a tool for empowerment, maybe, rather than a rigid demand placed on everyone who suffers.
Precisely. It's a tool, not a requirement. Frankl was reporting what he observed, the internal mechanism that helped some survive. He was describing an available inner choice, not mandating it for everyone in every situation.
Okay. And zooming back out to that core empowering message, it really centers on responsibility, doesn't it? His big shift is saying we have to answer life's challenges, respond to what life asks of us, rather than just demanding that life make us happy or give us easy answers. That switch from expecting things from life to answering life's call, that feels key.
Yes. So if we're synthesizing all this material, the book really stands as this incredible testament to human resilience. It shows, through both lived horror and careful analysis, that while suffering is unavoidable, despair doesn't have to be the final word. It's a direct challenge, really, to every reader.
Hmm.
Move beyond just feeling like a victim of circumstances and actively think about your own purpose.
And he makes it actionable by leaving you with two core questions. Not the typical why me, but instead, first, what is my purpose, given who I am and what I can do? And second, maybe more immediately, what does life expect of me right here, right now?
Which leads to a final thought for you to consider. If Frankl is right, if the will to meaning truly is our primary drive, how might understanding and really confronting that existential vacuum, those feelings of boredom, aimlessness, the pressure to conform, how might that change how you structure your daily life? Frankl essentially challenges us to see boredom not just as a lack of fun, but maybe as an alarm bell, an indicator that we're lacking purpose. That's the provocative idea this deep dive leaves you with.